G'day everybody. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different and do a demonstration of a tool that I've been working on for the last little while in earnest in the last 12 months, and it's an Ansible installer for Linux. If you go to my GitHub page, github.com/Cleary, you can see a, sorry, I'm just going to quickly Stream Manager. You can see there's a pinned repository called Ansible Tidalcycles. Have a click on that, and this is it. The intention is to simplify the installation of Tidalcycles and editors with Ansible. Now, for a long time, I kept this pretty basic. It did a very vanilla install of Super Collider, Super Dirt, and a number of editors, including VS Code, Atom, NeoVim, Regular Vim, and Feed Forward. And it stayed like that for quite a while and was quite robust. And anyway, as I got into Tidal more, I wanted to, do more with it and start bringing in some Midi gear and start outputting stuff to a door. And I wanted to split the orbits and increase the number of orbits that were, or channels that were output from Super Collider. And I wanted to do this in a manageable way because I use Tidal across multiple machines. I have a laptop, I have a desktop, and I have some testing laptops that I do other stuff with. So in the last couple of months, I've added some extra features. So I want to go through them today as well. Specifically, I'm running on today. This is my desktop. This is what I do most of my streaming and most of my playing on, and it's a bit of a mess, I imagine, like most people's installs. The Tidal is oh, Ted the Trumpet, g'day. We've got a Ted the Trumpet's just done an install with it just by chance and happened to be online when I said I was doing this. So this is basically for him. All right, back to some basics. What distros are supported? You can see here Ubuntu, Debian, Linux Mint. I've added some very early Arch Linux / Manjaro support, only supporting the Tidal, NeoVim, and Vim roles at this stage, but I'm keen for feedback if anybody can try them out, and just bump me on the club.tidalcycles.org forums or the Tidalcycles Discord or wherever, Twitter even, you'll find me everywhere. Here's some information on usage: sudo apt-get install Ansible and Git. You need these two tools. When you clone this repository, making sure that you use the recurse submodules variable, because all the different roles are actually included as submodules. And you can cd into Ansible Tidalcycles and do some stuff. Here we go. This is how we install just Tidalcycles standalone. That'll give you Super Collider, Super Dirt, and Tidalcycles. If you want the VS Code editor as well, use this command. If you want Atom, here you go. NeoVim, Vim, feed forward, you get the picture. Now, one of the things about Ansible as a configuration manager is that its intention is to be idempotent. And what that means is that you should be able to run it again and again and again, and you'll wind up in the state that that the configuration defines. It doesn't matter how many times you run it; it will always put you back in that state, and that's how Ansible is supposed to be developed. And something it took me a long time to learn, not necessarily with this particular playbook, but just in my role, I use it. In my role at work, I use it a little bit. All right, so back to the job at hand. I have a old system. It's a mess. Let's find out how much of a mess it is. Find out how many boot titles we've got floating around. Okay, 1, 2, one in Atom, 3 different versions of in Cabal, and as it turns out, Title 1.7.3 has just been released, and I wanted to, give you a demo of how this works on a how this works as an upgrader for a mess of a system like this. So let's do it. We'll go from scratch. I've already got all this stuff installed, but let's just do it for the sake of the demo. Sudo apt-get install Ansible and Git. Cool, already installed, no surprise there. We will git clone this guy. We'll go and do it in a make directory Ansible demo, Ansible demo. Let's do the git clone, there we go. Okay, that's pulling down a whole bunch of stuff. And here is our checked out repository, cd Ansible Tidalcycles. Okay. What's actually in here isn't that important. What we're looking for now is our commands here to install and upgrade stuff. Right, so I'm going to do this is going to fail, this is going to be deliberate. I'll just give you an example of some little bits and pieces that you might run across so you get a true representation of what running this looks like. So we're just going to do the basic title install, just Super Collider title, nothing else, and this should upgrade us to title 1.7.3. Let's do it. And the output is intended to be fairly informative. It's a bit verbose, and since I've added Arch support, it's even extra verbose because it still says that it's skipping all the Arch stuff, which is, I don't really know how to control the output, so better you have more than less, I guess. Alright, so it's hitting this task. We're running a Debian-based operating system. This is Ubuntu Studio 2004, and it's just going to make sure that we've got all the dependencies that we need installed as a starting point. Doop, 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 doop. I always assumed this was quick and that a demo would be really easy to do, but now that I'm here, it feels like it's taking a really long time. And knowing that this is going to fail in a second, because I'm running Super Collider over here, it just does a check to see if Super Collider is running and then just bails if it is. It's one of the errors you can expect to hit. There you go. Exit if sclang or Super Collider is already running. Cool. So I've got Super Collider running. That's obviously something I need to stop because I need to do some Super Collider stuff. So let's get rid of that and we'll kick it off again. Yeah, look, it is quick. I think it's just because I'm live and nervous of dead air. So let's run it through again. It's going through a bit quicker this time. Okay, this is all scooting by pretty quickly. This is where we got up to before exit if Super Collider sclang is already running. We'll do a Cabal update. And look, all Ansible does is you define a list of tasks, and those tasks are basically all the steps that you need to install title and update title. And if you define them in a nice idempotent way and a clean and logical way, it makes it just you do the things in the tasks that you would do as a normal title user, and it just automates that whole process. So so compiling and installing title, I'm expecting that this will give us a changed output. Usually this would just say OK if it's already installed. Cabal needed updating, it's giving us a changed. I'm expecting right now that it is downloading and installing title 1.7.3. This is a live demo, I haven't actually tested this, so I'm just trying to be as true to what you guys might expect if you're running this on a similarly pre-installed system. Okay, compile and install title changed. We should have a new title 1.7.3. Do some checks. SuperDirt, I don't know if SuperDirt got updated. It may very well have. If it did, this will update and we'll get a changed notification on that as well. Okay, so looks like SuperDirt. Looks like SuperDirt updated. Okay, all right. Now this one's worth taking note of. Copy the Super Collider startup.scd template. Backup any existing. If you heavily modify your Super Collider startup.scd, this will replace it. Sorry, replace isn't the right word. This will copy your existing one off to a temp file or a little backup file and insert my vanilla template over the top. That's worth knowing because you've probably got some custom stuff in there and it's no longer going to work. So let's have a look at what that means. I'll cd to where the Super Collider startup stuff is. I think it's in config, Super Collider. Nope. Maybe. Beautiful. Alright, you can see that I've been running this an awful lot on here. Here's our new startup.scd. That's the one that Super Collider will use. And you can see that there's just a whole ton of backups from all the various different upgrades that I've run on this. If we're just doing ls-l sort by time, we'll see that the latest one, am I looking at this the wrong way or is it just not listing them properly? It's interesting. I probably just renamed it. There it is. So this is our old startup SCD. This is the new one that it's just written in. If you want and if you want to grab your configs back, or you want to just do a diff for a comparison, you can just copy that back over the old startup.scd. There are some tags that you can use with Ansible to say I only want to run tasks that have this tag. One of the tags that I've used is config. Let's just have a quick look at the README. That's right here. Tags. Okay. The only minor gotcha is if you significantly modify any config files that are templated, e.g. .vimrc, startup.scd, or settings.json in VS Code, you'll need to restore the backed up version from the install directory after running. Alternatively, you can exclude the config writing tasks via the config tag. So if you stick this guy on the back of your Ansible playbook command, it will leave your startup.scd alone in this scenario. So that's just a handy thing to know if you're finding that that's getting annoying. And early on when because there wasn't really a lot of capability to this, it was just doing an install and not doing any config management per se. It was giving a very, very plain install. Anyway, happy days. We've done our install. Our startup.scd has been written. I'm not going to worry about my old one for now, for reasons which will become clear in a second. Let's verify that it's working. Start up our Super Collider. Groovy. We're listening. Now I use a variety of different editors here. Obviously I test most of the ones that I install here, so let's have a look. We do a vim / actually no, I'll do VS Code just because it'll be pretty and I can maybe zoom and resize stuff. classic. You're going to want to have this connect as levels. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. We'll worry about that later. Okay. So that's pretty cool. That's done. I don't really know the best way. Just turn that off. I don't really know the best way to verify what version of SuperDirt we might be running. I'm sure I've done it in the past, but it's not ringing a bell. So let's have a look at what we can find. Go back to our home directory. We'll just do a find dash type D. My name SuperDirt. So we can find here. There we go. Downloaded Quarks. Now this is a Git repository, if I'm not wrong. Okay, Git this. Okay, head detached at v1.7.2. Looks like maybe we didn't get a SuperDirt update. That's okay. Find some of our boot title.hs's. We should see that we've got a title 1.7.3 now. I guess an easy way to verify if we're using that is to get rid of these guys. I'm sure there's some information in. Oh, here we go. Title 1.7.3 here in VSK. Happy days. So that's it. You just run a single command and it'll run through and update your update all your stuff. It'll make sure that you've got the latest version of SuperDirt. I trust that it's checked that. I've actually done a bit of work in the most recent, the 1.7.0, 0.1.2, just to make sure that's all working. So I'm confident with that. And that's it. We have a vanilla system now. The stuff that I wanted to, that I've been working on lately, which I kind of wanted to demo today to, show you how it's gone from being just an installer and sort of manager to actually doing some config management is here. So let's have a look. CD, what are we doing? Ansible demo. Okay. The file that's of interest in this scenario is vars all.yaml, and I've got an example file there. Let's have a look at it. First thing to note, example file only. Copy this file to vars all.yaml and uncomment bits to use. Okay, so if you run some local sample paths, custom sample paths, pop them into this list. After you've popped them into the list and you've rerun the installer, it will populate those sample directories inside your startup.scd if you use VS Code or Atom, both of which have sound browser panels or panes. It will populate those config files with these settings as well. That was very early days. The next thing that I thought was that maybe it'd be cool to, because there's quite a lot of samples available in Git now, and I thought it'd be great to maybe just automatically pull those sample repositories from Git, so I did. So we can source samples from Git repositories. These are individual samples and they keep the audio files in the top directory of the repository, FLBase. So you can just uncomment these, uncomment this guy, and then any of these that you want. Might as well put some in just to make it. I do like FLBase myself. All of these are fine. They're right, and bongos, we'll put them all in. This little definition has two parts. The name that you want to use when you're live coding with it. So FLBase, I like to use FLBase. and the Git URL that you want to pull the samples from. So in this case, this is from my repository. You can see that that's, I call that repository samples-fl base. Same for the rest. That's all fine. You might just limit this to one, I'm not sure how the internet's going tonight. Okay, sample sets that have the audio files contained in multiple subdirectories of the repository. So Alex Yaksu has a bunch of nice CC0 licensed or permissively licensed repositories as well. JV1080, Dirt Impulse, DKTR0, the David Ogborn who does Estuary has a bunch as well. Estuary samples Supercontinent, and I've got some hydrogen drums I ripped from the Hydrogen project. It's a permissively licensed project. I just made them Tidal-ish. So let's just grab two out of there as well. So we've got git sample individuals, git sample sets. Okay, modify common super collider startup.scd defaults for a complete list available. Check roles title defaults main.yaml or your startup.scd template. To be fair, I'm probably not keeping up with this, so this is probably a more accurate one. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so these are basically just the options that are specified in the title, the startup.scd template by default, and I reference them here and modify them if need be. That would explain why SuperDirt didn't upgrade. I think I need to fix that. Anyway, that's all cool. I'll come back to that. Shit, I've lost my chat. Sorry, Ted. Quarks.gui. Okay, so that's how I could check what my that's how I could check what Quarks I've got installed, right? And versioning, I guess. Yeah, cool. Okay. I might come to it shortly and give it a check. Because I'm hard coding the SuperDirt version, I don't know if that's a good idea, and I'm thinking right now that it's not a good idea. So I'll have to have a think about how I deal with that. There's a git changed. There's a git changed parameter that would probably do it. That's something to fix anyway. Okay, so you can modify common defaults. One of the defaults that I use, because I occasionally make use of a door, is the number of output bus channels from SuperDirt. So I'm going to make that 8, 12, 2, 4, yeah, so 6 channels should be plenty. And all that does is when it generates the startup.scd template, let's just go over here and have a look at it. Open startup file. It just inserts in here number of output bus channels. Boop, just replaces that. But you can set up all this config from one file instead of having to jump between your startup.scd, your editor config files, etc., etc. So we'll just do that there. You can connect Midi clients to send patterns to hardware, software, synths, plugins, etc. Have a look at the Midi tutorial in SuperCollider. Get the output of MIDI client.init, which will return a series of sources and destinations in the following format: MIDI endpoint, full name, port name. Live code name is the name you'd like to use to refer to this MIDI device in your title code. Latency is optional and defaults to 0. So here's some example ones. I do like to create virtual MIDI ports. So I have quite a few MIDI throughs because for some reason trying to do multi-channel soft synths in RDOR. Doesn't really work, so instead of doing multi-channel soft synths, I just do multiple MIDI, virtual MIDI ports, and just separate them out that way. Probably should demo this one. Let's just have a look. I can't remember the names of my. You know what? Okay, let's follow the. Pardon my language. Let's follow the instructions. In SuperCollider, get the output of MIDI client.init. Okay, I've got a few. Okay, MIDI 3 port 0. We'll just use that. And I'll refer to that as MIDI 0 in my code. Full name, MIDI through, port name, MIDI through port 0, latency optional. Just leave it in for this example. Okay, and we'll come to this one in a second. So this is the thing I've been working on recently. For better or worse, it's pretty complicated getting all this to work and getting it all to work across editors, but I did it, and hopefully it's maintainable. So we'll see how that goes. Adding the mutable instruments UGens. There's been a bit of discussion on the forums. Mutable instruments, I don't know the details, but they open sourced. Some of their effects code, I guess, that got ported to SuperCollider by V7B1, and then there was a bunch of work done on the forums to create synth defs so that we could then make use of them in Tidalcycles. In order to make them function, you need to compile you don't need to now, you can download a precompiled binary. You have to insert those UGens into SuperCollider. You have to insert the synth defs into SuperDirt, and then you have to create a bunch of parameters in your editor to load with Tidal, with your boot Tidal.hs. So I've automated all of that so that you can just uncomment this and it will do it all for you. Let's leave that for a moment, and we'll just do everything except that for now. So I'm editing the wrong file, so let's write that to vars all.yaml. I'll just quit this one. In vars all.yaml. Okay, there it is with all of our uncommented gear, and that actually highlights a lot nicer now. So that should be a bit easy to see what's going on. Okay. Now, I'm using VS Code in this example, so why don't we run the VS Code playbook. Title-VS Code. Interesting. I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the right place. Title-VS Code. That's what I want. Playbook. Okay, I'll let that run. Good grief. Wondering why it wasn't tab completing. Okay, we're going to run through this again. It's going to... Okay, so you can see some new stuff's coming this time. There's a meta role, which is where it sets up and gets all of our samples. So it's downloaded FL base. There's a debug message I probably should get rid of. Interesting. SuperCollider is running without fail. Let's try that again. Okay, here I come. This is all pretty low key. Probably should have bumped the SuperDirt version. We'll worry about that later. much going on here. This is all done. It's really only needing to do config stuff. Here we go, copy the Super Collider startup, so that's changed because we just put a bunch of stuff into it. Okay, we've got some VS Code stuff going on as well. VS Code was complaining about needing an update, so it'll probably update now. While we're waiting, I might just Super Collider can kick off again and we can check some stuff in there. Okay, sweet. You can see there's some Midi stuff in here now. You can see that we've got new samples, Civo, JV, Gabba. FLBase should be in there somewhere. Open the startup file and we'll have a look at it. Okay, so it's loading sound files from this Git sample individual directory. That's where FLBase would have gone to. And we're also loading from this Git sample sets directory with the dirt JV 1080, which is the Yaxu supplied samples. Okay, number of output bus channels, 12. Now this requires extra configuration in SuperDirt, as it turns out, so you've also got to modify this variable, which is done automatically for you. But there's so many little bits and pieces you have to keep track of, so I just do it in this tool and don't have to think about it so much. Midi client, probably don't need that there, but anyway. There's our connection from SuperDirt to our Midi through port 0. I'll test that in a moment. Alright, latency 0, and we make it available in SuperDirt. Alright, so that's managed our startup.scd. Let's go into VS Code. I'm just going to close it off, reopen it. Okay, new update, super, thanks. Here's our title file, 3.title was running before. If we go to the sound browser, you can now see that we've got our bog standard dirt samples that comes with title, or comes with SuperDirt. Our configured dirt JV 1080 from Yaxu, and our Git sample individual dirs, which includes, as it turns out, I had a bunch pre-installed, but FLBase. Probably should, yeah, anyway. Ideas. But point is, I just did a whole bunch of stuff, including configuring Midi, configuring my output channels, common stuff, configuring my sample directories, all in the space of a tiny little change in that vars all.yaml file. So you can actually configure a large chunk of your title environment now using that. And just to prove the point again, was our Jack Super Collider, connect to OBS, and got output. Yeah, happy days. All functioning again. Okay, so that's a lot of fairly basic config. It's just changing a setting here or there and not doing anything too exciting. I've been enjoying trying out the Mutable ugens, and I've had to rebuild my laptop recently, and I thought, well, you know, I may as well just dive in and put it into this Ansible installer. Since I'm going to be installing it anyway, it's a bit of mucking about, and I'll probably get to understand the whole process a bit better. And that's what happened. I understand it a lot better now, which is great. It did take me 2 weeks, which is probably not as long as it would have taken to pop it on my laptop, but what do you do? So, do I talk about it? I do. vars, all.yaml.ex, support for various custom config attributes, blah, 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 blah. Super Collider UGens can be installed. Currently only supporting mutable instruments. SuperDirt synth defs are automatically configured and parameters auto-loaded in all editors. So that's convenient. So there's a few bits of the chain that need to happen, and I was just, I mean, maybe I don't need to give that much detail, but just letting you know that it all happens. So let's do it. Im vars all.yaml. Okay, install and configure various UGens. Here they are. Let's uncomment X mutable instruments, the only one supported at the moment, and we run again. So you need to load parameters. I'll just show you. Vim files, mutable instruments. What's this? It's defs. UGens parameters.hs. That's a weird naming convention. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You need to load this file in your boot title.hs when you start when you kick off from your editor. And all the editors are doing things a little bit different. VS Code has a built-in boot title, and you have to specify a setting if you want to use an external one. Atom has a hierarchy of ones that it tries. NeoVim has its own in the title Vim has its own in its repo. So tracking down all the boot title.hs's and making sure they work. Feed forward, you have to pass a parameter on the command line. It was a bit tricky, but I've got them all working. So let's give it a go. Do it for VS Code. Okay, you can see, it's checking all this stuff. JB1080 is there. It's not doing anything. It's not changing. It's just saying, okay, it's done. FL base, okay, done. Configure these guys, done. I need to get rid of the debug messages. They don't need to be there. Oh, good God. Pardon my blasphemy. I've run this a lot, like a lot, and you would think that at any point I would remember to shut that down. Okay, some changes coming in. Create the UGens destination directories. That's where they're going to get installed. Download and extract mutable instruments. I'm actually using NDR BRT's releases at the moment. I noticed that the standard repository is doing releases as well now, so I'll probably migrate across to those at some point, because I'm not certain that NDR BRT wants to be maintaining all this till the end of time. And I might have a chat with him about that. Okay, copy the UGen synth defs. Create the required config scripts directory. Copy mutable instruments params files to script directories. Load mutable instruments parameter file in boot title.hs. So that's just loading it in the standard title provided one, because I figure that's a safe bet that you might need it there, and it happens to go in all the other places as well. So it's you're not gonna find it missing. We go here, blah blah blah. Okay, we're installing SuperDirt yet again. So working with Quarks was pretty tricky. I had a lot of problems getting it to work reliably, and the upshot of it all was I think my task actually does a complete fresh install every time, which takes a little bit of time and is a bit of a pain in the ass, but it is super reliable now, so that's the good news. Okay, so I'm back and I found what was wrong. So I previously installed the mutable instruments UGens on this machine, and I'd installed them to a different location than where I chose to default my Ansible installer. As it turns out, it was failing to compile because it had found duplicate, like the UGents had been duplicated in 2 different places. The SuperCollider was looking and it wasn't compiling for that reason. It turns out that I do actually create a log of some of these installers, particularly this SuperDirt and the SuperCollider stuff, because I find that it's so, at least in the past, had been so finicky. If we do a cat on that, it was actually already telling me duplicate class found, found them here, and it found them in this other place as well. So needed to nuke them. I just deleted them both and rerun and cross fingers. Probably should have tested this before coming back online, but as I say, I've got faith. See what happens. Plus I got to make a cool little tune in Estuary. Still some dangling processes. That's just from the failed install before. Okay, should be enough. One of the reasons you have to make sure it's closed is because it sort of fails but holds processes open instead of failing cleanly when it can't do stuff. There's some bug reports about it, and I don't really understand the rationale behind it, but the SuperCollider guys know what they're doing. So I've just had to try and work around it by just failing if it's not closed properly, and allow the user to manage that shutdown themselves. Okay. There we go. Actually bumped the SuperDirt version as well while I was offline. Alright, here we go. Some SuperCollider running. The thing we were just working on was enabling the Mutable instruments UGens. And what you're going to notice now is that we have some MI clouds. Now clouds is one of the effects that's a global effect, and that's why we're seeing stuff about it there. Alright, now as I was saying, NDBRT had a cool little demo for clouds on the forums. We're going to need to route some audio. SuperCollider, jack input, connect. Let's see if you can get some sound. Okay, I'll just turn that down a bit. Alright, so we've got our Moog running. We add some clouds effects. Clouds, he's done a 0.4, 0.4, 0.1, 0.2. It's an amalgamation of the possible cloud parameters. I'll come back to them in a sec. I'm just going to prove that this works. Clouds blend 0.9. Okay, this should give us some delay effects. Yep, so you can hear it. You can hear a slight delay going on there. And then there's this nifty clouds freeze thing you can do. And this kind of holds a component of the sound generated by clouds, like a component of the additive sound that clouds provides, and by setting gain to 0 on the Moog, that's the only sound you hear, and it's like a nice ambient texture that you can do some control on. So okay, so you can hear that. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. And these variables still apply. So you can pattern it. So let's put something in here that looks like slow for sound. You can hear that changing. Just do slow to try. That's interesting. Set that to 0.1. Try that, see what happens. I'm not going to do anything because it's only hitting things very slow throughout. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that we've now got all the mutable instruments in. You can do stuff. There's some synths in there. What's it called? Let's have a look at the parameters file. It's actually sitting in my Git repository. In files, gen parameters. Okay, mutable synths. Actually include the names of the synths. I need to get the name of the synth. Yes. Interesting. Okay, here we go. Braids, Omi, flats. Let's have a look at some of those. I don't think braids works from memory. Let's stop for some reason. I think it's working now. Let's just do Omi as an example. Omi, I'll stick it. In there. It's very quiet in my headphones. Up, down, switch that in the same. You know what? Apologise for being so slow with this stuff. I think I'll just do something like this to do what I'm looking for. Let's try that. that. So you can see there's a whole bunch of OMI stuff, and then from our parameters we can choose some of these things. Slope, shift, engine. I don't know if OMI has an engine. Let's find out. Doesn't look like it. Flats definitely does. Alright. Anyway, you get the gist. You need to be a bit careful with the clouds freeze, because it'll just keep running after you turn it off if you don't set it to 0. Alright, there you go. And that is the end of, I hope the demo would go the first time round. So yeah, I encourage you to try it. Look, this it gives you a really easy way to rebuild your title environment. So I wouldn't be too worried about breaking stuff. It's very easy to take a backup of your title environment. I'll do that right now. CD into our home directory, and basically it's as easy as ZCF. Create a tar archive called title backup, date stamp at 2021-04-15 here. .tar.gz, and just grab the files and directories that you need. Config super collider, local share super collider. There are super collider ones. Type cabal.ghc. What have I forgotten? Yeah, look, I think that's about it. That'll get most of the stuff you need, and if you use my stuff, everything breaks and everything turns to poo, you can simply delete those directories, unpack that tar archive, and you're back and running. I do have plans to actually add some nuke support or some backup support in the Ansible installer. Yeah, get to it one day. I spent so long on it the last 2 weeks. It's been most of my spare time, and I haven't really made much music, so I'll spend the next 2 weeks just making music. Alright, because this system is so full of junk, there's a lot to back up. Alright, done. LL title backup. There it is. 600 meg, good grief. It's decently sizable. Alright, thanks everybody. I will catch you around the place. Any questions about this, please raise an issue on GitHub. address again, github.com/Cleary. Find your way from there. I'm on Discord, I'm on the Tidal channel on Discord, I'm on the club Tidalcycles forum, I'm on Twitter at GreyBaseTech. Alright, I think that's enough. See ya.